What's the one question you should ask somebody who is not a believer? I think it's this. If Christianity were true, would you become a Christian?
Well, Frank, you certainly won't ask me that question in public at the conclusion of this video. It just got real.
Oh, wow. If the person hesitates at all, the problem isn't just intellectual, it's also volitional. They might not want it to be true.
They may hesitate because they have never heard the question. Maybe they never thought of it, and it takes them a little bit of time to think about it. Dependent on the nature of whatever God it is, perhaps it's evil. They may not want an evil God to exist.
And I've gone to a lot of college campuses and presented evidence that Christianity is true with our seminar called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist.
Frank, you know, if you had presented evidence that your God was real, that everyone would know about it, and there would be a lot of believers. I would believe if you presented evidence that your God was real. And so here you go off about talking about whether Christianity is true. That's a vague concept that you purposely put out there to obscure the fact. What you're actually trying to say here, is God real or is God not real?
And sometimes during the Q&A, it'll get a little hostile. An atheist may get a little hostile. I'll normally ask him that question. I'll say, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? And on several occasions, I've had atheists yell back at me, no! I go, wait, you claim to be an atheist, a beacon of reason. Never mind if atheism's true, reason doesn't exist. Because if atheism's true, if we're just molecules in motion, if we're nothing but moist robots, then we're not really reasoning anyway, we're just reacting. But let's leave that aside.
All right, so this is what I call machine gun apologetics. You just throw so much stuff out here. He has a run-on sentence that goes on and that goes all kinds of different directions so that the person listening can't process what's going on. So I'm going to go into this just a little bit, one piece at a time. I would definitely say no without hesitation. Why? Because what if the said God is evil? What if it does harm? What if it is not worthy of worship? Even if God did exist, I would acknowledge it, but I would have no reason to worship said God. Is atheism true? Now here, what he's trying to do is equivocate atheist or atheism with religion, as if it is a religion, and it is simply a lack of a belief in a God. Is atheism true? If your definition of atheism is that I do not believe in your God, then atheism is true. And you cannot refute that. Because that's my thoughts. If you were trying to suggest that atheism is false because there is no God, you would have to prove that there is a God, which has not happened.
I ask you, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? And you say no. How's that reasonable? How's that rational?
Just because a God does exist does not mean it is worthy of worship.
Rational? Well, it's not. They don't want it to be true. They have a moral issue, an emotional issue. They have an accountability issue, maybe. In fact, let me tell you this, that most of the time on a college campus, evidence is not the issue. The elephant in the room is morality and accountability. People don't want Christianity to be true. Why? Because they don't want there to be a God. They want to be God. They want to go their own way. They don't want to have a moral authority above them.
So now let's just bash the atheists. We're just going to throw out all kinds of accusations because we don't really have any substance to our argument. But let's address the moral issue. If Christians do believe that they are saved and do believe that they are going to heaven, then they believe that no matter what evil they do, no matter what harm they do, they are just forgiven and get to go to heaven no matter what and live in eternal bliss forever. So there is zero accountability for anything wrong that they do. Christianity is the most immoral position it is actually possible to have, Frank. Whereas the atheist only has one go at it. Most of us believe that we simply cease to exist. So what we do does count. Our morality, our actions do count in this world today.
Most people are not on a truth quest, they're on a happiness quest. Whatever's going to make them happy, they're going to believe.
Well, surprisingly, Frank, we can agree on this one. A lot of people do have a happiness quest, as you put it. And there's nothing wrong with being happy.
You would have asked them, well, is there any evidence that Christianity is true? Do you have any evidence? They couldn't tell you. So the sword cuts both ways.
This is one of the most awkward things I have ever seen in an apologist video. You have failed to present any evidence that God exists. I don't know.
But thankfully, I think you can believe something that's true even though you don't know it's true. And I think Christianity is true.
So something can be true even if you don't know that it's true, and you said that you think Christianity is true, but by what you just said, you don't know that it's true. And that's what all atheists want to do. They just want to know if there's a God or if there is not a God. It's that simple. It's a lack of belief in God. And if there is a God that can be proven to exist, most atheists, well, you cannot be an atheist and know that a God exists. So their atheism would no longer exist for at least that God that was proven to be true.
And I think there's very good evidence for it.
You know, it'd be a lot easier if you would just cut to the chase instead of saying, I think there's very good evidence for it. Why not just throw down the evidence and we can be done with this whole issue?
And I think there's very good evidence that atheism can't be true, and any evidence that atheists bring forth to try and say atheism is true is stolen from God's universe when they try and make that.
Once again, since you have failed to define atheism, it's very, very difficult to understand what you mean by atheism is not true. I do not believe there is a God, and that is factual. We're not going to even go into the slippery slope of what is true. It's factual. I do not believe in your God. You have not presented any evidence for your God. You've talked about it, but you didn't present it. And you said there's great evidence that atheism is not true. Well, first of all, what is atheism and what is not true about it? The fact is, you're full of crap. You have nothing to stand on, and so you cannot make a case. So you just throw out bullshit. It really saddens me, Frank, to see people like you. I've got a family member that's done the same thing, was an evangelist. I've grown up in that scene. I know about the lies. I know about the deceit. It's hurtful to me to see you do what you're doing. If God was proven to be real, then there would be no atheist for that God. Would that God be worthy of worship? Is it a Mayan God that demands sacrifices of human beings and has no other benefits to mankind? Would that God be worthy of worship, even if that God was real? I say no. Would a God, the Christian God that destroyed the entire world because he didn't like his creations behaving and being exactly what he created them to be, a God that demanded genocide, that endorsed killing a girl's parents and raping her and making her a slave wife, a God that never condemned slavery, a God that hates people for their sexuality that he created. Would I worship that Christian God? No. This is Compelled Unbeliever. I no longer believe there is a God.